Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Miss Sam. I am one of the teen librarians here at the Levittown Public Library, and we are very honored today to have Kimberly Zaun with us. She has been in the cosmetology field for over 20 years. She's worked in Canada, she's worked in New York, she is soon to be working in Florida, and she is actually currently in the process of opening her own franchise salon down in Florida. So we have lots to learn from you today. I am so excited that you are here. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Kim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the field?
Okay. Well, I am 45 years old. I've been living in the US now for, I guess, just about 11 years. Before that, I was living in Canada, was born and raised up there. And for many years, I actually started off in the pet industry. I worked in boarding kennels for several years, and then I took classes, became a dog groomer. I did that for several years. And then I was just looking for something else to do because the dog grooming field gets really hard on a person's back, a person's body. It was fun, but it was dirty work. And my back was not happy with me. I lifted way too many fat dogs into bathtubs. So I was looking for something else to do. Wasn't sure. Then I went to get my own hair done one day, and it's like I had this weird little epiphany, and I'm like, I could do this. This seems like fun. And because I've always been an artistic person. I love coloring. I love doing art. Can't draw worth a damn, can't sculpt. I'm like, but I can play with hair. So I decided to look into classes. I went off to cosmetology school at the age of 27, and the rest is history.
Very cool. So tell me a little bit about your schooling. Obviously, in order to be a cosmetologist, you need certain certifications and certain certificates. So obviously when you started, you were in Canada, so it might be a little bit different in the US. So when you went to school, what type of classes, what certifications did you need in order to work in that field up in Canada?
It really varies state to state. For the most part, you're usually going to be having to spend anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 hours at hair school, logging those hours. So you're probably looking at around 8 to 10 months, give or take, maybe even up to a year in school. You start off with very basic, simple. They give you the mannequin head with real human hair on it, and that's what you practice on. You learn the different types of cuts. You learn different ways to do things. Then you move on to color classes. Then you move on to perms, straightening, styling. So you have to take all these different aspects. And one class that I always found very, very interesting when I was in school is you have to take a whole class on people skills. Learning the different personality types, how to read different personality types, how to work with different personality types. It was very interesting, and it seemed weird at the time, but after 20 years in the field, I now am very thankful I took those classes.
Yeah. And then obviously, when people think of cosmetology, there's obviously many different branches that you can go into. There's makeup, there's hair, there's just tons. So what made you really go into the hair field? Did you get any other training in any of the other fields, or did you kind of just stick to hair?
I kind of mostly stuck to hair. I did take some facial waxing classes, so I know how to do some waxing, eyebrows, and all that good time stuff. But I could have gone into doing things like extensions, weaves. I could have gone into doing nails and aesthetics and everything else. I decided to just stick with hair. That's more my wheelhouse. That's what I wanted to do. But yeah, you can kind of take it and run with it in any direction you want, really. So, I mean, you can go anywhere from, working on runway models, doing hair, doing, hair for movies, where, you're trying to make somebody look like a, undead zombie that's walking around, or you could be trying to make them look like a princess. It really varies. But I decided to just stick with, your kind of everyday working on members of families to make them look their best on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. And then what would you say, once you came out of school, how did you really find your first job? Because I think that is always something that's hard, especially for people just entering the job market. They have the skills now after getting their training, but now where do I go? So how did you break into the field once you had gotten your certificates and stuff?
A lot of, young budding hairstylists just coming out of school have this, idea that I'm going to go immediately into a high-end salon and be doing, hair for celebrities and, making $500 a day doing hair. That's not really the way it works. You have to work your way into a, a beginning salon. Try to look for a salon that has a lot of walk-in traffic, because that's how you build clientele. And straight out, when you first start off working in a salon, you are probably going to be mainly doing assistant work. You're going to be shampooing clients. You're going to be doing color rinses. You're going to be sweeping. You're going to be cleaning, and you're going to be doing a lot of watching and learning. And that's how you really learn. Hair school is one thing. Your real learning is done on the job, mentoring under somebody. So your biggest thing that you need to do is find somebody that is willing to mentor you. Because hair school teaches you how to do things the state board way. You go into a salon and they teach you how to do things the sensible way.
Gotcha. And I think
the real way.
Yeah. And I think too, depending on who you're working with as a mentor, obviously this is a very artistic field. So I think everyone has their own spin, their own take on how they approach things. And yes, you might know how to be able to do a certain color, but how to apply it or what color would look great on one client compared to another, I think is something that's more learned on the job. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because guess what? Yes, you might have a basic grasp on how hair color works and have a pretty good idea, the theory. Every color line is different. And there are so many different color lines to deal with, and they all have their own little quirks. So you got to learn to work with the quirks. Like you learn on the job real quick that I'm dealing with Wella. Somebody wants a golden blonde. For the love of God, mix the gold with something else or they're going to look green. Because that's what Wella gold does. It's kind of a quirk. However, if you want a golden blonde and you're working with Paul Mitchell, beautiful color, great. However, their reds, not the best. But if you're working with Wella reds, they're awesome. So you just got to learn on the job all the little quirks that each color line works with. And it's a learning process. It's a never-ending learning process.
And you're also learning too, I would say everybody has different textures in hair too, right? So that obviously plays into it a lot as well, right?
You and I know curly hair is its own strange little creature. Yeah. It's temperamental and it's very opinionated.
Gotcha. So my next question is too, obviously every salon is different. So I know that I've heard, I don't personally know a lot about it, but I know that there are some salons where you rent chairs compared to being on staff. So how does that work? Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what people should expect going into that field?
It's really kind of varied. When you're just starting off, I always recommend go into a salon where you're making like a base salary. If it's a salary plus commission, that's good too. But until you build your clientele up, you don't want to be trying to go into a chair rental situation. Because at that point, when you're renting a chair, you're technically an independent contractor. Gotcha. So you will make as much money depending on how busy you are, but you're always going to have to pay that chair rent. So if you had a slow month, landlord doesn't care, he still wants his rent. Right. So until you build up, stick with a salaried spot. But once you do, build yourself up into a nice, steady clientele. And if you don't want to go through something like opening your own salon, then yeah, a chair rental situation probably would work quite nicely for you.
Right. And then what would you say you like the best about your job, and what is the thing that it's the worst but that people should be aware of and know going into it?
The best thing about the job is like just making people feel beautiful. It really is. I have had women get up out of the chair after their hair is done and hug me, crying because they look and feel so beautiful. That feels pretty darn good. Just you get your regular clients and they become like family, and it's really fun. I mean, so yeah, it's things like that. Just making the family connections. Just like I said, it's like family. We have so much fun. I get to explore my creative muse now and then. Somebody comes in and they're like, do something wild and crazy with my color. Okay. Mermaid hair coming right up. We have a lot of fun doing things like that. And just, it's a really fun outlet for your creativity. Worst part about the job is we all know people are people. Some people are nice and you get your rare people that are not so nice. And just trying to get through a day when some people just are not going to be pleasant to you. And it's going to happen now and then.
Yeah.
You get through it. You work through it.
Right. And then you were also saying, I know obviously you started in Canada, you worked in New York, you're now moving on to Florida. What were some of the things that had to happen in order for you to be able to operate in those different, places? Obviously, there are certificates that are different in each one. So how were you able to move from one to the other?
I got lucky in that the standards in Canada, there's actually two tiers of professional hairstylists in Canada. They have what's called a learner's permit or an apprenticeship permit, which is the 1,500 hours of hair school. And then when you spend an additional 2,100 hours on the job, then you can go for what's called the journeyman's. So I've completed that. So technically I had 3,600 hours worth of training.
Gotcha.
So when I got to New York and I went to apply for my New York license, basically all I had to show them was proof of that. And they're like, here you go. Because New York, the hours are only 1,000 hours. So I was way far above that. Florida was a little more tricky. That was a lot of back and forth emailing, showing a lot of proof, paperwork. The first person that I talked to actually gave me some erroneous information, and they're like, well, you just have to go to the local hair school and they observe you working for a week and grade you, and then they give you a grade and endorse your license. I said, okay, fair enough. So off I go to the local beauty school, paid them about $1,500 for this little privilege to do, and only to find out later when I put the paperwork in and it was taking a long time to get back, they're like, oh, you filed it wrong. You didn't need to do that.
Oh, lovely.
It would have been nice to know $1,500 ago.
Yeah. So it's definitely, obviously, every state is different. Every state has different requirements. So it's definitely, if you intend to go from one state to another, to make sure that you're checking all
Do
the
your research,
requirements.
check on that, and be aware if you just got your license in New York and now you move to Florida and you want to work, you're more than likely going to have to go back to school and make up 500 hours.
Right. Gotcha.
No, it's just 200 hours here because it's 1,200 hours. So you're going to have to go back to school and make up 200 hours.
Gotcha.
That's the way it is. That's the way their program is, whether you've been on the job for a year or 20 years.
Right.
You're going to have to play the game.
And then would you say that there are any regional limitations? Can you really work and live anywhere, or is it better to be in certain areas compared to others as far as working in the cosmetology industry?
Honestly, everywhere you go, people need their hair done. I have literally heard cosmetology or hairdressing specifically referred to as a recession-proof job. Because no matter what else is going on, if the economy is tanked and everything, people are out of work. Well, guess what? Somebody's got to go for a job interview. What's one of the first things they're going to do? I'll get my haircut.
Yeah.
I can't go to a job interview with scruffy hair or gray roots showing. So you're generally reasonably safe. People might not spend as much on color or on products, but they're always going to need to come in and get their hair cut.
Basic hair. Yeah.
Yeah. Region wise, you might go into regions where have a heavier population of, say, African American people that, their hair is kind of its own little specialty. And if you know that's probably an area you're going to be living in, then yes, it would behoove you to take extra classes to learn how to work with that type of hair. Because I never took kind of those classes, and my knowledge of working with that hair is maybe not the best. So hence why when I'm opening my salon, I do want to have somebody on staff that is very, very good at working with that kind of hair, so that I can give the client the best stylist for their needs.
Right. Making sure that you have, kind of know your demographics of the area that you intend to work in, and making sure that you can meet the needs of that demographic.
Same thing with barbering. Barbering is a whole separate section that you can take extra classes in and get more expertise. I can do a perfectly nice basic men's haircut, but when it comes to the cutouts that a lot of guys like to get done, the more specific, clipper work, that's more barbering. So again, when I hire staff, I would like to have a dedicated barber on staff to take care of those needs.
Right. And now that actually brings up something else that I wanted to discuss with you. Is I know that you are currently in the process of opening your own salon. I know that you've decided to do a franchise. What led to the decision to do a franchise rather than, Kimberly Zaun's hair, like your own independent a company?
Believe me, it was a thought of going independent. However, nobody in this household, in this partnership, has ever owned a business before. Whole new world for us. And we wanted the support of knowing what we needed to do every stepwise to open a business, because there was stuff that I can tell you we hadn't even thought about until it came up and we're like, oh yeah, oh God, we have to do that? Really? Oh, okay. And Lemon Tree as a franchise has been an amazing franchise to work with. They are so supportive. Heidi, the main lady that we work with, has always said, you call me anytime if you have any questions, whenever. I don't care what time it is, just call me. Okay. It's actually kind of cool. And we were designing the back space, for construction, making our floor plan. The CEO himself, Jonathan Shaw, actually designed part of the space in the back for us.
That's amazing.
He's a very hands-on person, and we like that about him a lot. So yeah, just the support that they gave us is huge. Yes, it cost us money. Yes, we have to pay some, money back to them. I think it's 6% of our profits every year. But you know what? It's been completely worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it.
To go into this blind, not knowing anything about owning a business would have been a very scary process indeed.
Right. All right. So that's something that everybody should keep in mind if they're looking to do their own independent business one day, that
business classes would be a very smart thing to take.
Yeah. So that actually leads me into another thing too, where obviously, when you go into cosmetology, you immediately think working in a hair salon, working for someone else. So obviously we've already talked about how there is the option that you can, do your own independent business, you can do franchises. What other areas would you say that these particular skills or these certifications could help, people work in? I know you said, you mentioned runway models and things like that. So what are some other areas that this would work as well?
Yeah, like I said, runway models, you could be an educator. If you want to take education classes too, hair schools are always looking for skilled stylists that are willing to teach and pass the knowledge on. You could do anything like working on a cruise ship. They have hair salons on cruise ships. You could specialize in doing blowouts. You can do theatrical hair for theatrical productions. Heck, if you want to work for Disney, you can go work in the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique and give little girls princess makeovers. There are things like if you wanted to help the community out, you can volunteer to go around to like the nursing homes and do hair on some of the clients, because those little old ladies that are in the nursing homes to get their shampoo set.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that. Helping the community out is always a huge thing too. I know there are hairstylists that volunteer at, do things like go to the VA once a month and give haircuts to the veterans. Something I want to look into doing when we're a little less, crazy busy with building the business. It's a wide open field. Everybody needs their hair done, unless you're a completely bald man, you need your hair done.
Right.
It's always going to be there. It's always going to be something that you could even fall back on. You can go part-time, you can go full-time, you can go independent, you can work for somebody else. It's really wide open.
Yeah. Well, and that actually leads into my next question. Would you say that there are any limitations in this line of work on your personal or social life, or do you think that it's something that can be more 9 to 5-ish? How would you say the schedule kind of works?
It's more 9 to 5-ish. There may be a few limitations, but it's nothing too crazy. It's like people skills are definitely something that you learn when you're doing hair. If you cannot handle working with people, you don't want to be a hairdresser. You don't, because not only are you a hairdresser, you are a marriage counselor, you are a family counselor, you are a dermatologist, you are their best friend. It's like being a hairdresser or a bartender. You kind of get the same type of thing.
Right.
You're a captive audience for a little while. And if somebody just needs to vent about how horrible their job is or how much their kids are driving them crazy, they're going to bounce that off you. And you just, oh, that's terrible. You had a bad day. Let me help you feel a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads into another question is, if we're talking to a teen who is interested in this career, what are some interest, abilities, skills, or things that you think would make a successful candidate for cosmetology? So, what are some skills or personality traits that they should have?
Pay attention in art class, specifically pay attention to colors, how they work with each other, how they foil each other. That's going to be very important. Chemistry. You got to know how to work with different chemicals. Roll the word ammonium thioglycolate off your tongue a couple of times and you're just, wait, what? What's that? It's something you're going to need to know.
Right.
You're going to need to know if somebody's got henna in their hair and they want highlights. Good luck with that. Not gonna happen. If somebody's been using a metallic salt-based color and they want highlights, don't do it. Their hair will start smoking and maybe melt off. We need to know how certain chemicals play or do not play nicely with each other, and people skills. You need to know how to work with different types of personalities. It's going to be very, very important. If somebody sits in your chair, and they just close their eyes, they're not big talkers. Respect that, do your job, have a nice day. If somebody sits down in your chair, flops down, goes, oh my God, I had the worst day ever. Throw the cape on. Okay, honey, tell me all about it.
Right. Learning how to interact with people. Yeah, is a big
part. Learning how to interact with the public is huge. Huge.
Also, obviously, we were talking about, knowing the different brands and knowing the different colors and things like that. Obviously, those change over time.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you make sure that you're staying on top of, your skills? How are you making sure that you're learning about the new products and things? Do you continue to take additional classes? Do you learn, is it more on the job type of training, or how do you stay on top of your skills?
There's always trade shows. At least once a year, there's going to be some kind of a beauty trade show. I always recommend going to it. Watch the runway things. They'll have people up on stage doing different funky haircuts, introducing color, introducing different product lines. And what is probably most important is to work at a salon where they really encourage continuing education. In our salon, we are Paul Mitchell focused, and they're going to be classes probably at least once a month, once every 2 months. And so either it's going to be introducing a new product line, it's going to be a color class, going to be an updo class, new haircuts. There's always something new to learn. It is an industry that is ever changing. It is dynamic, changes all the time. There's always something new to learn. When I started in the industry, keratin wasn't even a thing. Never heard about it. What's that? If you wanted your hair straightened, you got either a relaxer or you just flat ironed it. Now all of a sudden it's a huge booming industry. But perms are coming back. Who knew? I find they tend to cycle about every 10 years. They come back. Young men are getting perms. I don't think we've seen that since the 80s. So it's just, you got to keep on top of it. You got to keep your skills fresh. Because I've known a couple of hairdressers that learned 40 years ago and they haven't bothered updating their skills since then. And it shows.
Yeah.
It shows.
I was going to say, because you kind of need to stay on top of the trends too. Obviously,
Absolutely.
Trends change throughout the decades and the years, and
hair follows fashion.
Right.
Fashion changes every year, and hair changes right along with it, and it usually reflects what's going on in fashion.
Obviously, we think about, working as a cosmetologist, more of a independent focused job. Would you say that you do more work independently, or that you do some work in teams, or how does that work?
You're obviously generally more working independently. However, it is really important to be part of a good team that'll help each other out. I've worked with some hairdressers that are divas. They think they're above everybody else, and they are not fun to work with. They just aren't. You never want to be surrounded by coworkers that think they're too good to help you out with giving a client a shampoo if they're not busy. I'm going to own a salon. Guess what? I'll still jump in there if somebody needs a colorant, somebody needs a shampoo, they need me to mix them up a little bit more bleach and 20 volume. I'm on it. I will happily do it. It's part of being a team. If somebody
experience, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you might have, some ideas you want to do for a client's hair, and you just want to bounce the idea off of somebody else or get a second opinion on it. Get them to, come over and say to the client, yes, what she's telling you is correct. This is not going to be good for your hair. We should probably go this direction instead. It helps to be surrounded with a really good crew. That's going to be my biggest challenge owning a salon, is finding a good crew to work with.
And then obviously we talked about, in order to work as a cosmetologist, you need a lot of training, you need a lot of, certificate hours and things like that. Is there anything that you could suggest for a high school student who is, really interested in doing that career, but that hasn't quite gotten those certificate hours yet? Obviously they're not up to that, but is there anything that they could be doing now to prepare for those jobs, or to get some of the skills that they might need, whether it's people skills or working on their chemistry skills or things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Pay more attention to chemistry, art, start really following hair fashion. There's all sorts of blogs on YouTube about how to do different types of hair, different types of procedures. new color lines, how to do a keratin treatment. Watch those. Get yourself going. Offer at a local salon to sweep the floors and just watch. Say, I will wash color bowls for you. I will sweep floors. I will do all that. If I can just sit and just kind of watch you do stuff, watch you work, watch how things happen in a salon, volunteer. I will voluntarily sweep your floors if you teach me, give me some of your knowledge.
Yeah, that's always good. The question then would be, once I have the skills, I've graduated, what's the best way to go about trying to find now a professional job?
Obviously keep your eyes on things like, on Craigslist, on Indeed. I know our site Lemon Tree has a national site where they're going to advertise that we're looking for stylists when we start construction. So it'll go up on that site. Poke around on sites like that, sports clips even, if you don't want to work for a Lemon Tree. Some people might want to gear themselves more towards just doing men's haircuts, just doing haircuts and not color. There's places like Great Clips, Sport Clips, Supercuts. Look, like I said, for places that are going to have a big walk-in clientele, and places like that usually have a high turnover, because once people get really skilled, they build up a clientele, then sometimes they'll want to move on to a higher end salon. They want to go independent. They want to open their own salon, which is going to leave the door open for somebody new to come in and start building.
Gotcha. All right. So,
and also utilize the hair schools, because the hair schools are usually pretty good about helping their students find a job. I know we're going to be going to the local hair school and, saying, hey, we're looking for some, good new talent. If you have somebody in mind, recommend them to come and we'll interview them.
Nice.
Utilize the school.
Awesome. And then I would say probably my last question is, if you could give a high school student who is interested in this career any advice, any last minute words of wisdom, what advice would you give them if they're looking to pursue cosmetology?
It's going to be hard work. You're going to have to build yourself up. You're not going to be making $1 million and being a celebrity stylist right off the bat. You're going to have to put your hours in. You're going to come home with, hairy clothes and hair everywhere. Trust me, it gets everywhere. It's dirty work. You're going to come home with hands that are stained green because the guy wanted green hair that day. Patience, work hard, get really good with your people skills, and always ask open-ended questions to your clients. Don't just sit them in the chair and go, how do you want your hair cut? What kind of challenges are you having with your hair today? What problem areas do you have with your hair? What do you wish your hair would do better for you? I've said that to clients over the years, and I've had so many of them look at me and go, nobody's ever asked me that before. Or they've never worded it that way before. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to find out about you and your hair. This is how we learn. Make eye contact. Learn how to be good at making eye contact with people. It becomes way too easy to just, sit the person in the chair, you're both looking in the mirror and be talking through the mirror. Don't do that. Walk around to the front, look at them in the eye and make eye contact when you speak to them. That's a huge thing. Yeah. It seems like such a little thing, but it makes a big difference. Yeah. So yeah, just patience, hard work. You'll get there. If you do your job really well and you're really personable, you will have people lining up to sit in your chair, and you can make some pretty darn good money. Even if you're working at a value price salon. I worked in high-end salons, and I didn't make anywhere near the money that I did working for a Lemon Tree, because I was doing a lot more people in a day.
Yeah, so sometimes that's the better way to go. If you have more clientele, even if the price is lower, you, at the end of the day, you're making more than a higher price per client when you don't have as many clients. So something to consider.
When I first looked for a job in New York, I was working at a high-end salon, and it was really quiet. It was during a bit of a recession. Yes, there were still people coming in, but because I was the low man on the totem pole, I was kind of getting last pick of people coming in, and I would do maybe 3-4 people a day. Then I started at Lemon Tree, and now all of a sudden I'm doing 10 to 15 people a day. So yeah, the other place might have had more money per service, but guess what? Even I can do that math. I was making a lot better money and staying a lot busier and building a clientele a heck of a lot faster working at Lemon Tree.
Yeah, so definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
Well, Thank you so much. I've had a wonderful time during our discussion today, and I think you've hit a whole bunch of different things for teens to consider. So definitely thank you so much. I just want everybody to know if they have any questions for Kimberly or any questions in general, this recording will be posted on our website at www.levittownpl.org. Or if you want to email us a question directly, you can email it to us at teens@levittownpl.org, and we will make sure to get the question to Kim, and then she will get you your answers for you. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I just want to say, have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.